Welcome to another episode of the Layman's Guide to the World Cup. I am Henry, and I'm your host through this whole process. We've already got an introduction to all the rules and how the World Cup works. That's in episode 1. Episode 2 is all about Group A, and today will be all about Group B. But before we jump into that, I would appreciate any subscribes, any likes. You can also hit the notification bell. Feel free to put questions in the comments. I'd love to answer any of your questions that you might have, because I said something, you're like, Henry, what does that mean? I don't know what that word means when it comes to soccer. And I'll be like, okay, I can explain that to you. Or you have questions about a particular team and how they're going to do within these groups. Or even you can put below your own guess on how you think this group will shape out that we're talking about. So with that, we're talking about Group B today. And that is Canada, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. That's one country, by the way. Qatar, and Switzerland. And I would say, just like Group A, this is kind of a similar middle-of-the-road type of group. There's one clear favorite in the group, and then it really will be a fight for second place and another team trying to prove themselves, just kind of like the previous group that we talked about with Group A. And that starts with Canada. Canada's biggest question is, can we truly be a powerhouse in CONCACAF, in the North America, Central America, and Caribbean region? This is their third World Cup, and they've really come into their own within these last 4 or 6 years, and they're like, are they here to stay? That's the question. Can they rival Mexico and the United States? And they're one of the hosts, so can they get some host magic as well? Well, that'll be the questions for them. Now their nicknames mascot is the Canucks, which is used for a lot of Canada stuff like hockey and whatnot. Like I said, this is only their third World Cup, and their best performance at a World Cup is being in the group stage. Both with 86 and 2022, both of them were group stage exits from the World Cup. So that's the best they've ever done. So can this team with Jesse Marsch be able to do something here? Now, at the last major tournament in the Gold Cup, they did get knocked out in the quarterfinals, which kind of was a big upset. But also, if we go just a little further in 24 in the Copa America, that's Copa America where both Mexico and the United States got grouped. They made it to fourth place, getting knocked out by the eventual champions with Argentina. But they did something good there. That's the big thing about this team. They have Jesse Marsch as their coach. Jesse Marsch played for the U.S. national team, and he got told by U.S. Soccer, "Hey, we want you as the coach," after the last World Cup with Greg Berhalter leaving, and they decided to basically. He gave up. He had other coaching opportunities placed before him, but he's like, no, I'm going to coach the U.S. national team. And so with that, though, they decided, no, we're bringing back Greg Berhalter, and Jesse got burned. And that's a big part of this whole Canada team has been Jesse kind of proving a point to the U.S. Soccer Federation. So that's another factor that's going in. So that's the vibe with this team is, are they a CONCACAF powerhouse? Can they get out of the group stage? Are they good enough to get out of the group stage? And Jesse Marsch has a giant chip on his shoulder. Can he make something happen as a coach? We'll see. That's going to be the big factors with Canada. And they're coming into their own with quality. Just like we kind of talk about the United States having a golden generation, we can say the same thing about Canada. They have arguably, when he's not injured, probably the best left back in the world with Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich. which he's going to be a big subject of transfer this summer, because he's ready to move on. But Alphonso Davies can play left back. He can also play left wing. So he's both deadly in attack and he's a good defender. And he will be the heart and soul of this team. You also have Jonathan David, who had a rough season at Juventus after previous couple of years being the top scorer in the French league. And he's the guy that puts in all the goals for Canada. So can Jonathan David be a World Cup hero for Canada? And then you have Moses Bombito. He is their rock in the center back. He plays for Nice in the French league, and he's, can he keep everything tidy back there with his partner in crime, and can they make it so Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and the like don't have to worry about what's happening in the back? So I think a failure for them is getting grouped again. That is a failure. And Jesse just signed a new contract. But I think what's a success is round of 32, of course. They could push to top this group, but I think they're going to be in second place. But with the host magic, just with Mexico, I think they can make it to the round of 16, depending on who they're playing, who they finish in the group with, and the tenacity of just the team and the fight with that host magic. Do I think they can make it to the quarterfinals? I don't know. Jesse talks a big game, but you never know. So Canada is an interesting team with that. And this is going to be the team that they're fighting for that second place spot is Bosnia. I'm just going to call them Bosnia. I don't know how to pronounce it in their native tongue, but their nickname is the Dragons. And Bosnia hasn't been around a long time. Their first World Cup was in 2014, and they were grouped. That's the only World Cup they've been to. Before that, they didn't really make it anywhere. And before 2006, they were some amalgamation of Yugoslavia and other countries, and kind of figuring out who they are. So they're a young team by age and history, but they're also an interesting team because they've never been to the Euros. This is their second World Cup. But what's the most interesting thing about this team is, so they got second place in their World Cup group for qualifying, with Austria winning that group. And then they had to do playoffs to get into the World Cup. They beat Wales, which Wales is an okay team. But then they beat Italy and made magic happen. They're the reason why Italy is not in this World Cup. Outside of it's also Italy's fault. So can they carry that momentum of beating Italy, a former titan of this game, and can they carry that on? That's the question. Can they carry the momentum? But you have their captain, Edin Dzeko. If you've been around soccer, you probably know that name. He's been a prolific goal scorer in England and Germany and Italy. He's 40 years old, but the man can still score goals. And so he's an interesting striker, and he will be leading the attack. But then in the back, you have Saeed Kolasinac. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm going to be honest with you. He plays for Atlanta. Atlanta, they came in 6th place in the Serie A. That's the Italian league. So he'll be a solid force in the back. And there's an interesting player. The third player that I'm going to talk about is Esmir Bargatargovic, who plays for PSV. He's the one that scored the winning goal for Italy. Why he's an interesting player is he grew up in America. He played in the U.S. youth system. And then made a decision to switch allegiances from the United States to Bosnia. And he's definitely a different type of winger than what the U.S. has. So there's always this question around him of what could have been with the U.S. national team. He's young, he's 21, but he's really coming into his own, becoming a folk hero for this team. So can he continue to create some magic in this World Cup as he scored the winning goal against Italy? Now, failure, just group, for them. The best I can see them do is round of 32. I think they'll be fighting for that second place spot in the group. So if they're not in second place, they'll probably be third place. And I don't see them getting past the round of 32. They don't have depth. They don't have enough. They're very much a team that's running off of vibes and running off of momentum. And so can they transform that into actual form and actually do something? Well, let's find out. That leads us on to his third team, the Qatar, which they hosted the last World Cup. And they got grouped. And that was their first World Cup ever. Their nickname is the Maroon Ones. They wear maroon. So if you couldn't tell by that. But what's so interesting about Qatar is they do so well in the AFC Championship. They do so well. They won it. They won the last one. And the one before that. But it doesn't translate for them over to the World Cup. So what's happening here with them? Are they just lucky, or are they a complete fraud? I don't know. That's going to be that's the question with them for this World Cup. Are they a legitimate team, or do they just get lucky? And they have to prove that. They have to prove that this World Cup, because otherwise I see them in fourth place. I can't. It's hard to take Qatar seriously. Yet they do things. They win the AFC Cup. So, what's going on here? Failures being grouped. The best I can see is if they make it to the round of 32 from third place. I think that's what they'll be fighting for. So we'll see with this team. It's just they got fourth place in the World Cup qualifying group, and then how AFC works is the top team makes it, then the second grouping of teams move on to another group, and they have to do good in that. So they got first in their second group, and that's how they're here. So they're on fraud watch. Are they legitimate? Those are the questions we have about Qatar. And then we have, I think, the clear favorite in this group, and that's Switzerland. Switzerland's one of those teams that is always on the verge of being a great team. They have a lot of good players, a lot of great players. They're always a team that's hard to play against. They don't give up. They aren't someone that you just walk over. They can bring fight to any team anywhere. So they're just in this interesting place. Their best performance, though, in a World Cup is quarter finals. In the last World Cup, they only made it to the round of 16. And the last Euros, they're in the quarters. So, they're haunted by this quarter thing. So, can they be this dark horse, this underdog, like a underdog that actually has a chance, and bring it to the next level? They were undefeated in World Cup qualifying in their group. So, they won every game. So, can they translate that? This team's going to be anchored by Granit Zaha, which I feel like is a player that does not age. And he just keeps on playing so well. he played for Sunderland this season. Sunderland got promoted to the Premier League, and a lot of people thought they were going to be relegated right away. But they brought him into the team, and they finished in 7th place, and he was their anchor the whole season. So just like he's the anchor for the Swiss team as well. Then you have in the defense, you have Manuel Kaji, and he plays for Inter, and he's a really good defender. He's played not just for Inter, he's played for, before he was at Inter, he was at Manchester City, and before that he was at Borussia Dortmund. So he's a player that's played in big games. So he's going to be essential to holding down that back line for the Swiss. And then you have Gregor Kobel, who is a really solid goalkeeper that plays for Borussia Dortmund. He's only like 28, and he has loads of experience for his age. He's been the starting keeper for a number of years for Borussia Dortmund, and they're one of the top teams in Germany, and they're constantly pushing Bayern Munich. They're playing hard in the Champions League. He was there for when they faced Real Madrid in the final 2 years ago. So this Swiss team has a lot of experience playing big games. Because the other thing is, like, Granit Xhaka, he played for Arsenal, and he's also played for the undefeated Bayer Leverkusen season with Xabi Alonso as their coach, which that was 2 years ago. So, like, they have a lot of players that have played in big games. That's why I talk so highly about the Swiss, is they have this talent, and they have these players that have played in big opportunities. So can they translate that? Failure is definitely being grouped, but I think also failure is not making it to the round of 16. The Swiss can make it to the round of 16. I don't see why they can't. And I think it's hard to say they won't be first place in this group. Second or third, I think, will be kind of a failure for them, even though they are moving on. But, like, wild opportunity, they can get to the quarters. Can they make it further than that? I don't know. They're going to have to prove themselves that they're an elite team. Because that's what you think about, Are they one of the top 8 teams in the world? That's what the quarterfinal speaks to. Are they? So the Swiss have got things to prove, and we'll see what happens. So the storylines of this tournament is Canada, or for this group, is Canada, can they be one of the kings of CONCACAF? Can Bosnia carry on that momentum from defeating Italy? And is Qatar a fraud? And can the Swiss become an elite contender? So a lot of these teams have a lot to prove. It's not, even though it's not, one of the top groups, the most exciting groups, it is a group where everyone has something to prove, which then causes great games because all the games matter. Everyone's fighting. Everyone has a chance in this group, just like the previous group. So they're going to be fighting and fighting hard. So we'll see what that translates to. So that's been Group B. You'll be getting a double episode today. So a little later on at 5 o'clock, Group C will come out. So I will see you then for Group C. Bye.